Well, happy election day, folks. The blue team has taken the House from the red team. And, that's nice and all. But I figured, since I still have this YouTube channel, and maybe, just maybe, some actual people with actual aquariums might actually find it from time to time, I thought I might give some more helpful advice that, well, it takes being someone with my level of experiments or, yeah, and experience to explain in detail not only the methodology involved, but thoroughly what you can expect. Now, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever it is, wherever you are. Welcome to the Easy Reefers Fish Room. I am your host, as always, Fake TV's Sean Morris. And today, we're going to be talking about what happens when you run out of money. When otherwise, you'd sell your damn fish tank because you can't afford a fish tank anymore. You shouldn't have a fish tank. But either you just can't bring yourself to do it, or you can't find a buyer. What happens if you go 3 months without water changes? What happens if you cut back on all your dosing? What happens if you just let the algae grow and stop feeding your fish? What dies? What lives? What's manageable? What grows? What thrives? So I wanted to make a little broadcast and kind of thoroughly go into it as I just got done doing my dosing. Now, previously, the method that I use to maintain these aquariums hasn't really been what you'd call expensive. Certainly nothing elaborate going on here. But well, you see, when I first got these fish tanks, I was still making some pretty decent revenue. And I had hoped that, like YouTube said, that things would get sorted out. Instead, YouTube continued to prove to me that they were targeting me for my views, basically. Although that sounds petty and narcissistic of me. They were targeting me because they work for the specific agenda that I was a whistleblower on. That's just factual and as impactful as it deserves to be. Speaking of the House winning, oh, it'd be nice if Adam Schiff called me up and asked me to take a road trip. Anyway. But you see, reefing is it's a scary hobby to get into for a lot of people. And this is one of the reasons why. What happens when you run out of money? Well, like, all right, I've been at this job for a few years now. Then the company gets bought out right after you buy a 150-gallon reef tank. And you decide you don't like your boss anymore. You quit, take a new job. Turns out that one's not nearly as stable. You wind up taking a pay cut for stability. One thing can lead to another, a lot of different fucking ways. Life can screw you over. I've pretty much experienced all of them, I think, at this point. But, that was just a random hypothetical. You find yourself with a habit that was probably running you around, let's say. Some people can spend around $300 a month on their reef tanks, man. But let's be conservative. Let's say $50 a month. Because you had a good job and you were saving money. It was going in the bank. You had a nice car. Had a nice house. Everything's taken care of. You treated yourself to a reef aquarium. Because you had some friends that weren't all in touch with the environment. And you thought, man, I need to get them to pay attention to nature some more. Right on, man. So the most productive thing you can do if you're a fish tank owner is use it to educate your friends on the environment, because there's a lot of warning signs, let's just say, that are going on right now. I know I've talked about them a lot. And since I've been talking about them and I gave specific warnings about them, well, they've blown the fuck up all around Florida, haven't they? Red tides, giant algae blooms. Killing fish and other organisms by the millions and making them wash up on shore. Costing Florida billions in tourism revenue. Oh man, wait till they actually tabulate the losses from this season in Florida. Oh man, it's gonna be it could cause what's called a cascade reaction, which is basically like a slow motion crash of an economy. That drastic of a regional tourism decrease can just throw off so many financial projections that it can throw heavy industry and real estate into kind of a confused state. And thereby, over a long period, offset a large portion of the economy. And that's assuming that they're actually fucking doing something to fix it. And well, one thing you can do if your tank looks shitty is drop an air stone down in your sump. Yeah, that's it. Just drop an air stone down in your sump. Right where the water comes in. As far away from your pump as you can. Just oxygenate the hell out of that water before it goes into whatever filters you have. And you know what? Ain't nobody's dropped any damn air stones into those bays and boat dock areas. I keep seeing the photos and the videos of the people and the boats and the fish up in this nasty water just sitting there stagnant. And I'm just thinking, a few hundred air stones, clear that shit right up. The fucking water needs oxygen, man. Because it had more bacteria that it needed to process, it needed more oxygen. You didn't supply the oxygen, so the bacteria didn't get processed. So guess what? Anaerobic bacteria has taken over. You want to kill anaerobic bacteria that's keeping the other shit from, coming to life and eating the algae like it's supposed to. I mean, blue-green algae isn't a bad thing. It's when it blooms out of control that's bad. It's blooming out of control because the water's too shitty to sustain copacetic life. Okay? You need zooplankton to consume the phytoplankton, So you need bubbles. Simple. How fucking expensive? How hard is that? It's a no-brainer. All you need is one person who had a fucking fish tank in Congress, I guess. pH is low. Throw a fucking air stone in there. Yeah. Oh, look, we fixed something. But anyways. Simple problems, simple solutions. Okay. Well, let's talk about some simple problems and simple solutions on a smaller level, shall we? Because, let's see here. How's it going, Mr. Conway? That was weird. Just went down to 0 viewers for a second. There was, the River Tamak. Jordan was here a second ago, and it just went to 0, and now you're here. That's weird. Anyways. So, here's the situation, people. Up on the shelf with all the Seachem bottles, you will find the same bottles that I've had for a year now. And the 1 liter bottles of 2-part solution, well, they're almost empty. So I've been I've been experimenting a little, but mostly just been going into contingency mode, which is balancing out the use of 2-part solution with water changes and liquid calcium. So essentially, I've got dosing down to just twice a week. And half doses. So I'm only dosing 4 mils each. And that's going into 100 gallons. So that's really, really underdosing. and I'm doing very focused water changes, because the main problem that you're going to have when you don't keep your alkalinity up is you're going to have shitty algae take over. Okay. Basically, my tanks are suffering kind of the same problem that the Gulf of Mexico suffers. And like in here, for instance, you can see there's cyano in this stagnant area, and it's kind of staying off of where it's got a lot of current. But that cyano is a result of phosphates. Phosphates aren't so high that it's causing any problems. Everything's kind of asleep in here, but whoa, I need to trim back the fucking caulerpa around the frog skin. It's kind of getting buried in there. But anyways, Manipora's doing pretty damn well, and still got just Hollywood stunners kind of everywhere. And one thing that's been doing really well is this Kenya tree, or Tonga tree actually. See, Kenya tree, pinker. Yeah, that's a Kenya tree. Kenya tree. The Tonga tree. Well, it's just cooler. And I've been having them just frag themselves off everywhere. I just got stalks of them sitting around, floating around. Probably got a dozen of them by now. So, as far as focusing my water changes, this is where I'm focusing on. My alkalinity bed. Okay. This is where the little slots are. And this is, and you can see the slots at the top. It's actually flowing through the top because I got the water level a lot more full than I usually have it, but I'm going to be doing a little bit more siphoning, so that's fine for now. I don't quite think it'll overflow if I have a power out. It doesn't need to be floating there. And as you can see, there's a nice thick bit of sand that the water is forced through. And the main thing I have to clean is this sand. Okay. And right now I'm not stirring the sand that I'm not cleaning, except for when I can see that it's suffering from stagnation, like that back corner does right there. Now in the top tank, the sand is getting harder and harder to access, and then I have coral frags all over it. I'm considering pulling all of the rock out of this tank and just setting it up like a frag tank, just so I can separate corals more. I'm going to move the big corals over to here Hopefully I can move them high up enough to get enough light. That's the issue that I'm worried about, is them not getting enough light. But, starting to run out of options here. So another thing that was happening that is a focus of your maintenance is you're going to get algae growing on the walls. Let it grow nice and thick and siphon it out in phases, and as long as it's not fucking with your current. And basically use it as your nutrient export, where you would be meticulously siphoning sand, and just basically, as long as you have areas that are growing algae, like away from your rocks, higher than your rocks, like your glass, presumably getting more light than your rocks. Like in this case, there's no getting to my rocks. It's either covered in coral or caulerpa. That's it. There's no algae fucking room on the rock. So the algae grows in the glass. So that's convenient enough. I just siphon the hell out of the glass with a simple little tool that I made. And I'll show you that right quick. This is my squeegee. Okay. And it is a little air bubble filter end cap stuffed into a hose, stuffed into the tube that I use otherwise. So this is interchangeable. I can pull that guy out of there from there. It seals off pretty well. And I can use that to scrape glass. So I made glass that looked like that. Actually, glass that looked a lot worse than that looked like that. And you can still see a few little pieces on there. But that's fine. That'll just grow back into big fluffy balls that I can remove again. And that's going to help me keep the nutrients out of the water as they leach out of the sand, because I can't just mix up 15 gallons every 2 weeks and get all my sand perfectly clean like I used to, which kind of drives me insane. But for now, I just have to look at shit like that. I don't even know what the fuck is going on over here. All I know is that I need to save these glove polyps from it. You're not doing your job, crab. I got the emerald crabs thinking, maybe they'll go after the caulerpa. Nah, not so much. Look at you guys. You look hungry. There's a shocker. Clownfish that look hungry. Now that right there is a stable system. You know what I do for this system? I add fresh water to it. If you want to have a system that is the ultimate in low maintenance and stability, just get yourself a bunch of hermit crabs and some caulerpa. And that's pretty much it. Just have plenty of current going through that caulerpa, and you'll be fine. Now the Callirpa, while this particular breed is pissing me off and killing, well, not killing coral, but making it difficult for some of my corals to live, uh, the Callirpa is another key thing to having, because not only is it directly a food source, but it allows for massive proliferation of copepods, and that will keep your fish fed. And basically, to give you an idea, I've been probably down to maybe feeding these guys every other day, maybe 2 out of 3 days, but really every other day. Sometimes I'll skip 2 days, and they're certainly not suffering. This is just far too overgrown with bullshit. Where the hell is my other clownfish? It's not hard to see anything in here. Seriously, that's odd. There's supposed to be an onyx in there. I've been worried about them both turning female, but the other one's been staying really low a lot lately. Here we have our Lee's countercurrent protein skimmer. Oh, a nice thick skim mate. That is one reliable son of a gun right there. And this is flowing down from the reef tank, from that overflow box back there in the corner. Spoticus. Where's your friend? I'm kind of worried. this is the pair that gets fed the most because of the hypothetical contentiousness. They're pretty evenly sized. Alright. I really need to get some freaking food in the right spot. Oh crap. Stick my fucking hand in there now. Let's get a damn towel ready. Okay. Did anybody see the other fish? Fuck. Oh. Thought I saw. I didn't feel a corpse, that's a good thing. Let me see if I can get myself a little more room to maneuver here. Phenomenal cosmic powers. Itty bitty living space. Alright, nothing randomly bite me, please. Okay, that was a sea cucumber. That was kind of squishy. Where the hell is this fish? Spartacus, where is your mate? Right? Especially one that's been sitting kind of unchecked for so long. no choice. Stir it all up and see if I could find the fucking corpse. I mean, a damn true pergola shouldn't be dying with plenty to eat. All right. I'm going to go ahead and do a little siphon. So let's see if I can keep my camera from falling into some fucking abyss while I prepare that. I'm going to turn up the flow. Okay, unfortunately, everywhere I'm looking is just skittish as shit as far as places to put the camera. But I do have enough water to take some out of here. So that's what I'm about to do. Go ahead and pull these fucking plates while I'm at it. Oh, no shit, there's baby stomatellas on that. Okay. Just gonna move that over here for a second. I can't believe I'm actually facing the possibility of a fucking dead clownfish that wasn't sick to the best of my knowledge. And no corpses. Hold on. And still no corpses. can't believe I don't see the fucking fish yet, though. She might be hiding underneath the damn thing. This rock that's in here is set up on pipes. Yeah, so this could very easily be a wild goose chase for a perfectly fine fish. But this is the other siphoning project I had in mind. So, best to do it now anyways. Alright. Now to stick my hand down that blind hole. Oh yes. If you like sticking your hand in strange holes, then reef keeping is the right hobby for you. Delicious. Alright. This little area. So the substrate in here is Eheim substrate. Because I like to mix it up. I raised Spartacus, the big true perk in there, from an egg. So, unlike most fish that would run away from your hand, he goes towards my hand. But I do not understand unless they've been viciously fighting, which is a distinct possibility. Where, oh where, is my true percula? For the last round of siphoning. you see. Is there really no corpse? There's the fucking fish. So the past several times I've been feeding it, it's been just basically coming less and less to the surface to eat. So it's probably just staying back there going, fuck you, I don't care anymore. That's like one of the reasons I've been thinking about moving them the hell out of this tub. That's a little less than sanitary there. Okay. Algae on my hand. So, no idea. The fish is usually in front of that plate for the past year or whatever. And usually they'd both come up to the surface. Lately it's been staying down while I feed them and just waiting for the food to fall to it. So, fuck, hopefully nothing's wrong with it. But I've been, like I said, considering moving it down to one of these chambers or something so I can see it better and more often. Problem is, this is what this chamber is for. Delicious. Alright. Fucking shade it back over where it's supposed to be. Covering everything and growing profusely. Yes, that's what it's supposed to do. Hell is the evil Callirpa doing down here? No. No. Get out. Power of Christ compels you. Fuck out of my sump. Okay, you're gonna get set right there for a second. So anyways, I think when it all comes down to it, the most understated thing that I could tell you about the poor slump maintenance, as far as chemicals go, the one that you'd notice the most when you're lacking it is this right here. I know I keep going back to this, but that should stress just how good this old school shit is right here. This, in your top off water, well, if I had maybe just prioritized ordering a little more of it instead of just trying to skimp on my dosage the way I have been lately, things probably would have gone a little better. Oh, okay. My back is fucking killing me because, working on that for a while and doing dishes and cooking dinner and been a hell of a day. But anyways, so if I was to buy another small couple of jars or bottles of Fusion part 1 and 2, that's the 2-part solution I'm dosing. I could make that last easily another year. Okay. And then lemon juice for pH. That's counterintuitive. Lemon juice is an acid. Don't go adding acid to your tank. No. Marine buffer, it's been around for so long, and the theory behind it is just so sound. It's using borate salts, which basically cause a self-catalyzing balance in the system. Oh shit, wait. I forgot. I've got to turn down my flow up there. Wait a minute. Why is my top tank overfilling? Why is everything sounding weird? Oh yeah. But anyways, considering the impurities of conventionally available chemicals, it's not something I think is worth shortcutting, especially considering that marine buffer is cheap. Okay? If I was to forego 2-part solution, that marine buffer would carry me a very long time. It was really not until I started skimping on that in my 2 parts, in my top-off water, that the coralline algae on the wall started to die and the hair algae and cyano started to take over. Now, a little bit of organic calcium helps, and you can make that shit last forever just adding a little tiny bit at a time. Iodide helps to reduce the bacterial outbreaks, and of course to keep your anemones and crustaceans happy, to keep copepods reproducing effectively. Ooh, yeah, I had the reef tanks flow turned on way too high. The sump was emptying and the tub was filling up. I'm gonna be really pissed if we lost Nemo, though. That was the onyx with the 1 black fin, 1 orange fin that I saved for being half dead at the fucking store with its fin bit off. And now I can't find it. We had renamed it. What did we rename it? Tifa. Yeah, hoping it would be the female. Tifa with the gloves. Yeah. But anyways, yeah, I wasn't planning on keeping so many fish in so small of a space for so long. I was hoping to have, you know, gotten recommended for my level of contribution. But I guess some people don't value truth and insight, and those people are the ones that are in control of YouTube. Anyway. So, what you don't want to do is have a thick sand bed during a low maintenance period that you don't siphon out. A thin sand bed, especially one that's got caulerpa growing into it, that can be pretty much left alone until you've siphoned out other areas, and that's the dirtiest part. But to minimize, so you can only say mix up 4 gallons of water at once, which is what I did today. I mixed up 4 gallons of salt water, and it'll be another month before I mix up another 4 gallons of salt water probably at this point. I might try to do it in 2 weeks, but it's been a hot minute since I was doing water changes. I've done one in the past 3 months, and that was about 3 weeks ago, I think. And that bag of salt is just dwindling down. I've got maybe a couple more rounds left in it. Other than that, it's just been RODI, resin, you gotta have the clean top off water. If you don't have the clean top off water, you don't have a reef tank. Because you want to see shit get out of control real quick. Add your local phosphates. Especially if you live in a farm area. Like if you live in like a small mountain town, you might be alright. If you live in a big city, water's probably shit. If you live in a farm area, water's probably shit. And I know, man, my RODI resin, it seems to exhaust rather quickly. You would not want to just drink the freaking tap water from around here. I let my kids use the RODI. I don't have that little extra valve for the drinking water now. Just drink the freaking fish tank water. That's why we buy Capri Suns. And by buy, I mean we get a lot of them from the food bank. Anyways. So, how's it going, y'all? I guess the rest of the broadcast is pretty much just going to be a hangout. Oh, without the nipple. Oh. I need to rest my injured shoulder here. Isn't that a lovely little mark? Ah. Kinda crappy. What's been going on? Is it fish tank related? Not that I really care. Oh wait, I forgot. We have to move into the studio lounge. Oh look. Oh yes, professional now. Because you know, that's not there. Oh, fuck. I've spent most of the day with my back hurting like hell and my head just kind of pounding. In fact, there are prettier things than me to look at, I'm sure. But I'm gonna see the chat. Fuck, there's too much stuff on my table. Oh, so on topic for you then. Well, just make sure you have a large mass of oregonite clean. And that marine buffer works real good for me in top off water, man. I like it better than Calcwiser because of the trace elements. And as far as just using less of it and the sustainability of using less of it, it just seems to work so well. Like, it's one of them things you kind of use liberally because it says it right on the thing. You can't overdose this product. You can't really use too much of that shit. Not like, you know, sanely. I'm sure, you know, you could fucking Elmira it. Go crazy and probably kill everything, but it's designed to basically, the more of it in the system, the more the system balances out. So if I had to say one thing to A, spend the money on, and B, know that I wasn't going to have to spend it again anytime soon, just a little tiny canister of marine buffer. And then for every gallon of salt water that you use, for every gallon of top off water, fresh water, all you should need is like half a teaspoon. And as long as you got effective oxygenation, that little half a teaspoon should be just fine. And I have to charge my fucking battery now, so I guess we're going into look at the dumbass mode. Which sucks because for some reason having to look at my own head makes my headache worse right now. I don't know what that is. It's like, there's the thing that hurts right now. It's kind of like looking at the wound. It makes it hurt worse. Yeah. There we go. That's a much better view. But anyways, so fucking election day. We might actually have a real investigation. Imagine that. I mean, you know, imagine might be all we get to do, but at least we can imagine it a little more happy now. At least it's a little more likely. Now, where the hell did my sketch pad go? If I can't find it, you don't get to see my spaceship. I apologize if I just mooned the camera. Seriously? Kanakazayash. Okay. It was there. And then somewhere my sketchbook and my clownfish are having a fucking party and smoking some really good weed without me. Oh wait, I drew a picture to show my wife. Oh, damn it. Hold on. Live chat. Oh yeah, it'll work in any size tank as long as you thoroughly dilute it into the top-off water before adding it. On a 10-gallon, I would be very tempted to try one of those Zoom Ed reptile drippers, those little bottle drippers. But you know, if you do pour in top-offs, just make sure it's thoroughly dissolved. And I would seriously, like, just half a teaspoon per gallon. Not even that much. Just a little, like a bump, basically. I've never snorted coke in my life, but I would imagine that that's about a noseful. It's not that I have anything against, like, well, nah, cokeheads kind of freak me out, but I don't judge. But how are you gonna stick some shit up your nose? Okay, no offense to anybody who's snorted, but like, I'm usually trying to blow shit out of my nose. I don't want shit in my nose. It's like, makes me want to sneeze thinking about it. Now, back in 1999, I will not name any names, but I was rolling one, and a guy handed me a baggie. I just said, well, fuck it, we're partying it like it's 1999. Sprinkled that shit right on there. All I remember is that it made my lips numb when I sealed the deal. But anyways, I just wanted to be clear. Because, yeah, marijuana was my drug of choice for most of my life. I don't really consider it a drug, actually. It's like a licorice stick. It's a fucking herbal medicine. See? I use this to clean my teeth. I used to use pot to clean my brain. Anyway. So, just a little bump. Just get one of your cokehead friends to come over and measure out your marine buffer for you. And just tell them to take a bump of the marine buffer. Is that what you call, like, how much you snore? I don't even know. I'm like, did I pay enough attention to my cokehead friends when I lived in New Orleans to know the terminology? You know, like there's... Is there like a pinky nail full? Yeah. Yeah, like a cokehead. Just tell them to put their pinky nail on the thing. Just shovel that right in there. And that'll be just enough marine buffer to keep your pH from dropping. Now, in a 10-gallon tank, man, I'm assuming you don't have any caulerpa in there right now. No kind of plants, macroalgae. But one thing you might want to consider that I've had a lot of success with in very, very small tanks, keeping the pH rock steady, is codium. And in fact, let me risk my battery. I don't think I was fucking managing to charge anyways. And we're gonna take a little trip to look at my 2-gallon, which is not clean. So forgive me, but it's been a while since I scraped the glass on this one. Just all over. And look at that. And there is Squirmy. He is our micro clownfish. He's about the size of a quarter. And he's 2.5 years old. So this is a $5 tank, $10 light, and a $20 filter. See, he has a jaw deformity. He tears up the flake food. There's my hand, okay? using my hand. There's the tank. I do water changes on that tank maybe every 3 or 4 months when the surface starts to look goopy. I'll go in there and I'll skim the surface water and I'll change that out. But I don't siphon the sand in that. Where are you gonna put a siphon? Fucking siphon for 5 seconds, there's no water left, you know? There's 2 gallons. That's all it holds, is 2 gallons. I have a little sponge fry pre-filter on there. I change that out every 3 months and clean it out. We'll change it with a clean one. And let me get my phone plugged back in. I heard no dingy sound. Come on, dingy sound. Oh. Well, now I don't know if my phone's charging or not. Shit. Okay, is it on or off? Is it off or on? I don't know. What is it doing? Charge. It's supposed to make a sound. Okay, well, if the broadcast just abruptly ends, it's because the fucking battery went dead. I apologize. Anyway, let me see what the hell you just said while I was in there. Does that scooter blenny eat pellets? Because with that banded coral shrimp, he's gonna have a hell of a time. They're gonna compete with each other for the copepods in there. When it's sitting there going and digging through everything, that's what it's hunting for. But if you can get some codium to grow out extensively like that, the copepods use it like an anthill. I mean, the copepods are just teeming inside of that. They have their babies like deep in the middle of it. And, you know, of course, nothing can get to it. Well, not like there's anything in that tank that would. Anyways. So, manual hair algae removal. Don't rely on siphoning. Before you siphon, go in there with your hands, or a pair of forceps if you have a pair of grippers that's good for it, and get as much of the algae out as you possibly can by hand before you siphon. That'll make the siphoning process go a lot smoother, and you'll use less water during the water change, and then you'll have more water to be used during the sand siphoning. but it'll make it go a lot smoother because, especially, when I do the walls and the accessories and even a little bit on the rocks here and there, I'm using an air tube, a little tiny air tube with a piece of acrylic. A little hard acrylic airline stick. And those get clogged pretty easy. They're very handy until they get clogged. But go in there and just patiently, take a bucket and keep it in one hand, just in and out of the tank, in and out of the tank. Just pick it out by hand. It's a great way to export nitrates and phosphates. And not have to waste salt water. Now, if I could rate in order of importance, for a system with relatively light coral load, like some, like your coral banded shrimp or crabs, or a large population of microfauna. The second most important thing, and really it's just kind of essential, you just don't want to do without it, especially if you have plants and other things that are consuming it too, is iodide. Without iodide, your microfauna will suffer, your bacteria will bloom uncontrollably, and any crustaceans, major crustaceans like shrimp or crabs, will not be able to molt properly, and basically they'll get sick and die before they can grow their next exoskeleton. Before it hardens, basically, there will be a back, and they will perish. And of course, your corals and your crustaceans, even your fish's bones, all get weaker without the iodide in there. So, let me grab the bottle right quick. Jar. Because it has a bunch of different little minerals in it. I don't want to get it wrong here. It has magnesium, calcium, and strontium. Okay, I'm reading the back of the bottle. And potassium salts of carbonate, bicarbonate, chloride, sulfate, and borate. And it basically, the only thing it says to use with it is marine trace. That's something I haven't dosed a while, is trace elements. I did just do the water change today, so I guess that makes up for that. Anyways, marine buffer will safely raise marine pH to 8.3. It will not raise pH above 8.3 even if inadvertently overdosed. So that's what I was referring to earlier. Marine buffer is a blended product and is not just sodium bicarbonate or sodium carbonate, commonly sold as a substitute. Such products can raise the pH to dangerous levels if not used properly. And marine buffer contains sodium, magnesium, calcium, strontium, blah, blah, blah. Directions. Add 1 level teaspoon for each 80 liters or 20 US gallons. It's 5 grams. Add daily until the pH stabilizes at 8.3. This will take from a day to a week depending on original pH and alkalinity. Now, my method I've developed over years is not what they say to do here. I put it in my top-off water. I just put a little tiny bit in my top-off water all the time. Because I got my protein skimmer taking shit out. I do my water changes, do siphoning here and there. And, well, when I was doing it regularly, it was when everything was looking fucking beautiful. So, can't argue with results. If marine buffer causes cloudiness in your system, you have a poor ionic balance. Effectiveness improves with continued use. Do not directly mix with any calcium, magnesium, or strontium supplement. And it's got a little dwarf lionfish. Okay. Cool. And now the broadcast is going bad. Every day I'm buffer. Okay. Fucking thing spinning. Can anybody see the broadcast right now? I mean, fuck. Don't use an API pH buffer in a saltwater tank. Do not, do not do that. Do not do that. Bad idea. That is not what it's intended for, and could be disastrous. Well, the coral banded means you definitely need to be um, if you slack off on a water change at the point where you're 2 weeks out, you need to dose half a dose of iodide. If you're waiting a full month, at the full month point, then you would dose a full dose as per instructed on the bottle. It's not something that you need to dose frequently or a lot of. You know, I've had my iodide bottle for a long time, and it's relatively full. But it's something that you absolutely have to have present in the system once that coral banded shrimp gets of any substantial side. Like when it's growing from this big to this big, it's just using up the iodide that was there. But when it gets that big and bigger, then it's going to be consuming that much over and over again every time it molts. So you need to have it replaced in there every time it molts. Yeah, that sounds like a good use for it. So yeah, I would just try to cut that down to 15 or 20% and just make it a very focused water change. 20% and just make it a very focused water change. Because really, you know, when you go beyond siphoning your sand and the water that you take out to siphon your sand and stuff like that and clean out those detritus zones, you're basically wasting water, okay? Because when it comes down to it, the trace minerals that are there, if you're doing it, the trace minerals that are there, if you're doing them regularly, if you're doing them every couple of weeks, okay, the trace minerals aren't going to be an issue. The only issues that you're addressing are nitrate and phosphate buildup. That's from uneaten food and from fish poo. If you're going in there and getting out the uneaten fish poo, not the uneaten fish poo, but if you're going out and getting the detritus and getting what's causing the nitrates and phosphates to leach into the water, then the water change is done. Okay? So that's really what to keep in mind. When you're sitting there going by the math, of the recommendation for beginners, you're wasting money. You're doing the businesses a whole lot of favor. And, you're basically eliminating any chance of anything going wrong with your tank. But to a certain extent, you're going to an unnecessary level when being more thorough about where you clean and making sure that there's no hiding spots for pollution and detritus to build up and leach into your system is the main point of water changes. You get that bullshit out your tank, then the rest of the water is clean. Now, those percentile water changes are made on the assumption that, stewardship may be lacking, the quality of care may be lacking, the targeting of the needed areas may be lacking. That kind of stuff comes with experience and observation. You have to get to know your tank before you can know where all the crap's gonna settle. But once you do, first of all, 40% is too much to begin with. Okay, that's too much. 20% should be all you're doing. Okay? But you can cut that down to 15 or 10% by targeting. So, if I had a 10-gallon tank, I would never change more than 2 gallons of water at a time. Not unless I had like a problem with it. Then I would change 40%, So I hope that helps. Does that help you save some money? You should be able to, really, man. 2 gallons is plenty. If you did it once a week and changed 2 gallons once a week, you'd have a pretty flawless little system going. What's funny? Speaking of mixing up 2 gallons, these are my salt scoops. I have 2 of these, just like this. This came in a mailer with, I think it was dog food, might have been cat food. Okay. And they showed up all around the neighborhood on everybody's doorstep with this bag of dog food and this little scoop at the end. And I went and got one from the abandoned house across the street. So I got 2 of them. And that was in 1991. I cannot believe neither of these things have broken 'Cause I beat the fucking salt out of them when I've broken buckets with these. These two damn little measuring cups. I have been measuring salt for my fish tanks since 1991. And that is the oldest piece of equipment I have. They have outlasted fish tanks and filters and everything else. Families and houses and cars. Special little cup right there. So anyways, if my app was more cooperative, I'd be more able to check out your videos, but it's not. That give me an easy way to do that shit. It doesn't make much easy when you're using Google YouTube on an iPhone. Just fucking hitting back from a video. Shouldn't be any need to feed twice a day in a 10-gallon tank. Once a day should be plenty. Unless you're having issues with aggression. And unless you're doing really light feedings. I mean, if you're doing really light feedings, that's one thing, but I would do one good feeding once a day, make sure everything gets fed. And if you do it before, if you do it just before lights off, the food that gets wasted is going to have a better chance of getting taken by the microfauna. So like whatever critters that'll just come out at night, they'll come out and like especially the parents. If you take a lot of time and observe copepod breeding, which I've actually done some videos on it. The parents are more likely to come out and gather food and bring back to their little nests at night. So if you're going to do your one feeding, do it more towards lights out. That way they'll have a better chance of spawning and making more copepods. Large HOB is fine, but if you can stand micro bubbles, a Rio Nano skimmer is something worth looking into for the price. There's a few competitive hang on the back models now, but $35, they run like fucking tanks, man. I've got one on the back of that 10-gallon down there with an aqua clear, and I got that on a 2-gallon that's shut down that I haven't cleaned out yet because I haven't decided whether or not I'm going to set it up to grow zinnias in. The zinnias on my back wall aren't doing very well, Every time the algae grows up around them, they start to grow on the algae. Then I pick them off, and then I got a fucking loose zinnia. And there's no telling where they wind up. But it kind of sucks because I gave those zinnias to Rick. And then Rick had propagated a shit ton of them. And then I got them back. And Rick was happy to see him again because he had them back before Katrina. Back before his house got flooded. Back when he used to basically sell coral out of his house. Oh well. Hopefully I'll find a new home for them before they all die. But if I could just come up with a decent plan, I would convert that whole fucking top tank into a frag tank. I just can't come up with a good plan for it. And now I got a missing onyx. Oh man. There's nothing could have killed that fish but the other fish. Those are some hardy, healthy fish. Dingo. Cut it out. Anyway. So it's very interesting how, you know, basically this is just a fucking device to monitor and stifle the potential of possible political activists and candidates. You know, YouTube, that is. Because I go and purposely fish for troll monitoring by talking about drugs for a couple seconds, talking about cocaine and whatnot. And sure enough, the number of viewers goes up to 5. When we get back into talking just about fish tanks again, it goes back down. And, you know, it's just kind of the obvious question. How do people suddenly know that the conversation got more interesting? Who are these people? I mean, it's obvious that the number of people who can find my videos is severely limited. So it begs the question, who the fuck are these people that actually managed to find it? And more importantly, who are these people that pop in and out at suspicious times? And more importantly, why don't they get a life or a fucking pair of balls? You know, I was watching the Gospel of John movie that's on Netflix because I needed something to fall asleep to. And, of course, most of it makes a lot more sense once you've learned the real story from me. But something kind of stuck out. Pretty much everything about the way they portray him makes it pretty obvious. I did find one indication. I forget what the exact textual. If you read the Gospel of John, you would find this. There's one indication textually, a literal indication, like in word logic, I don't know how else to put that the wedding was his wedding. And I don't remember the exact quote, but it's basically in the context of the wedding, he's referring to himself as the bridegroom. And they're not talking about like the, what the evangelicals say the fucking wedding, right? They're talking about the wedding that they're having, which is what I remember being the case and what my contention has been. The water in the wine, I'm pretty sure, is another myth, like basically a story of a Greek demigod that's been transposed on top of that story to cover up what is written elsewhere, so it can be verified, because I went and I sought after this. Basically, a garrison came and pushed most of those people off a cliff to their death. So, the wedding didn't go so well. That's been one of the whole points of all of this is, hey guys, it's time. Because before I came into this body, I promised her that we'd get married this lifetime and that we'd have shell wedding rings. And considering I was right about that happening when I was not even an infant, I seem to have a pretty firm grasp on what I have a firm grasp of. And nothing more. But anyways, the thing that really stood out to me, though, Um, you know, this time around, I have in one way or another hit every nail on the head, except for one. Now, while my wife saw the clouds, or the heavens, depart and roll up like a scroll, in the book of John, I'm not sure if it was due to mistranslation, because on that movie on Netflix, they're not exactly going word for word there. But it says, open up the heavens. And it's an interesting time for me to come across that and to think of that and consider, oh wait, I haven't done that yet. Because of what I've been thinking about lately, what I've been dwelling on lately, what I've been spending most of my time praying about, wishing for the future of mankind as far as the shape it would take. And as you know, I've been watching a lot of Star Trek. In fact, I've now finally seen all the different fucking connections between the old Star Trek and the new Star Trek and Enterprise. And it's a lot more interwoven and in-depth than you might think. It's pretty cool. Now, here's the deal. I had a vision in which I clearly saw a flat Earth. I could see all the continents. I could see everything. But I could see the spirit realm on top of it. And I took this as meaning that the spirit realm is flat, and those who are spiritually ascended can access their ascended nature by perceiving the physical realm as flat, and wield spiritual power in this realm by doing so. But then I really started to wonder if they ever managed to pull it off, if they ever managed to storm the heavens, if the world really was a ball at all. Because NASA is just so horribly full of shit. And not just NASA. The entire space race. I was watching a little mini documentary earlier. And I took a couple of notes because it was just like, no, wait a minute. you're telling this to people, and they're not calling bullshit on you. And if I had a fancy graphics studio, I would have made a clip show of this, and I would have had a repeated part over and over again when the guy says, we're all going to get paid. Because they're all trying to keep their jobs. They got to produce results, right? Well, this is regarding the European probe on the Cassini spacecraft that was launched into the moon of Jupiter known as Titan. Okay. Now, scientists, overeducated people with mediocre IQs, have speculated that methane-based life forms may have evolved here. Okay, so let's look into that. And they think this because the pictures they've shown us have rivers. And they've, somehow determined that there's a lot of methane there. I believe that. I believe they can determine there's a lot of methane there. I don't think those pictures are from it. They know there's a lot of methane in the atmosphere. But they think these rivers of methane are carving what looks like Earth rivers into the ice. And to prove this, they are dropping some liquid methane, lowered it down to where it's, lowered the temperature to where it's liquid, and they're dropping it on ice to prove that liquid methane carves channels in ice and flows through it and across it. And the methane just gets absorbed and disappears over and over again. They just drip it on there. And then they claim that is proof that they're right. Actually, you just shot your own theory to shit. And you're just moving on as if it didn't happen. And because we're the scientists and we say this proves it. It was as if they were dripping alcohol on something. It damn near looked like it evaporated. Like as if you dripped water onto a porous substance that wasn't limestone, like porous granite, okay? It showed no chemical dissolution the way limestone would, okay? How old the world is depends on what you mean by the world and what you mean by time. Because my understanding of the world and time are entirely different than what a human's would be. But anyways, let me talk about Titan. Because this is... Not only did they scientifically debunk themselves, for starters, they basically said that these images we took are chemically impossible according to our chemical analysis of the composition of this planet, toid, moon, whatever. And then they have ammonia water volcanoes. Apparently, if you dissolve enough ammonia into water, the freezing point is greatly reduced, and it becomes a molten type substance. So that's their theory on why these things that looked like volcanoes were happening there. Not just some pictures they took on Earth and just fucking bullshitted people and said, hey, this is from space. Because nobody can verify them, because if you look at Titan with a telescope, it's just solid yellow because it's got a hazy atmosphere. How convenient that only this one probe took pictures there and nobody can verify them. Okay, very, very interesting. I was watching a Star Trek episode. They were speculating back in the 60s that by the 90s we'd be sending out interstellar fucking mining spacecraft and shit. And they were perfectly logical in assuming such, based on the assumption, or perfectly logical in extrapolating such, based on the assumption that the space program of their time was real. A real space program would have advanced considerably by now. A fake space program, not so much. And here I just think I found yet another indication that the international space conspiracy is basically just a fucking con game that saps resources. Anyways, the ammonia. Such significant dense quantities of ammonia now. I'm really trying to think like a chemist here and not a biologist. But I'm not aware of any natural way that ammonia would form in such a manner as to dissolve itself in subterranean water. Like, was it a big space urinal for a while? And so that's just fucking, so there's no source for that ammonia. How did that ammonia settle and wind up there? Anyways, it just seems like they're just making shit up to me. Like there's no plausibility. Why would there be a concentration of an ammonia in that water? We want to make something look like that happens when it's cold. And we know from all of our silly science experiments that this does that. Okay. They think life would evolve to consume liquid methane. Because of the rivers. Because of what? You can have, like biochemically, you can have some limited brittle cellular structuring, and like a non-carbon based bacteria, like a silicone based bacteria. But it's kind of like why reptiles don't have large brains, because the the cooling requirements don't exist. You have to have a very constant temperature, and you have to have very high metabolism and very constant metabolism to maintain large cranial capacity. So that's why mammals only have large cranial capacity. But when it comes down to the cellular structure, the chemicals that the biology is based on matters, and complex cellular structures can't be built upon a methane silicone system, which is, you know, why it's built out of a carbon hydrogen system. So, anyways, basically, what I'm trying to tell you is bacteria is the most you're going to find. But you have to believe that somehow, in a time period that is actually longer than any astrometric calculation can permit, bacteria would have had to evolve into fucking human beings for evolution to be correct. But when I think of the time it would take according to their logic compared to the say the age of the oldest star we know about, I realize somebody here is full of shit. And then, of course, there was an issue of the while where they had found a star that was older than the known universe. And that was kind of a paradox. But anyways, the human form is a result of spiritual manifestation. The animal forms are also the results of spiritual manifestations. The human-like animal forms are creations of human-like spiritual manifestations. And that is why in every animal in nature, there is a story to be told. And it is, in fact, that story that originated the species and not the other way around. And if you're wondering how old I am, I remember when all of those stories were written. But they didn't have cigarettes that were this tasty back then. But anyways, so let me find my sketchbook. This is an artistic interpretation of brainwashing. Yeah, I just sketched that earlier. Hold on for a second. Figure out where the heck I was in my drawings. All right, look like that. There we go. Okay. There's the waveform theory and the structural breakdown. And there's the actual experimental component prototype. And here is basically a fighter patrol aircraft. And here is a possibly FTL, otherwise simply long-term interstellar transport, shown relative to one of these vehicles. So, here's the deal. This operates on electromagnetic pulse. And the problem with trying to use phase resonance as a form of propulsion is, well, it really doesn't fucking do much. So the solution is to make the entire aircraft out of the propulsion system. Now, this is all theoretical. I've never played with anything like this. I have no idea if this is going to work. But if phased pulse propulsion is possible, and I'm not the first person to play around with it, I figure it's going to be the configuration that actually matters. So, the two main issues with configuration are power requirements and distribution, and weight and density. To get around this, we need to cram every ounce of power generation capability and output capability into every single piece of the structure. And to do this, we're going to take the simplest possible approach. So, here we have your phased pulse array starting from the top of a pyramid, basically. Okay? And what you might notice is that it's spaced out in lines on top of solar panel. Now, inside, and I haven't fully illustrated every aspect of this because I was not firm on the main power source. The solar panels should only be considered a supplemental power source. The extreme high voltage required is more than likely going to require it's going to necessitate a physical power modulation capability. So don't think of this as a generator in here. This is basically the cap and rotor. It's a conduit that's going to have two modes. One is gyroscopic stabilization, and one is providing the actual pulse timing for the sequencers. Okay? So it all seems actually pretty simple, right? Now, when you want to actually build a maneuverable craft, you come into some pretty basic problems. For one, you know, you need more of them to make it fucking go anywhere. Okay? That's a top-down view of this configuration. And basically, what you're trying to do is make a magnetic field move down, okay, and expand so it gains more and more grip on whatever ionized particles or ionizable particles are around it. So in one case, you'd be moving, hopefully, this is all very speculative, obviously, against atmosphere. And in another case, you'd be aiming it away from a star and using these pulses to accelerate on a solar wind. Now, to do a little more than cancel out its own weight, you'd need one of these. To actually gain any altitude, you need two of these. To gain considerable altitude, you would need several of these. But to gain speed, you would need to resequence the pulse, not just from the individual mechanisms, but eventually to the entire structure. So instead of pulsing individually, this whole thing pulses. As the individual pulses continue to sequence, creating the resonance effect. So essentially, you have two for up and down, two for acceleration, one for, people or the cabin. And then you would need maneuverability. Okay? But if you put that into a practical scenario, what you would need is a weaker series of cross pulses. Okay, weaker because they wouldn't be able to go all the way around the structure here. See, I have 3. Each set is 3 on here. On these 3, allowing for, theoretically, hopefully, levitation to occur. Okay, so it's going to go up with this power, these working backwards, and this power. Okay, it's going to go up, a little bit forwards, and these are going to pulse forward. It's going to stabilize it out a little bit. Then this is going to reverse. And then basically, actually no, that would drop off, and then the forward drive would take over. You'd want to basically float it up and then pitch it back, and then have your pulse drive take over from there. And then to leave the atmosphere, you would then have pulses from there, and then there, resonating. And as you can see, I took the liberty of adding this, some cannons, little rocket launchers and phasers and whatever, because I've been watching too much damn Star Trek lately. Anyways, so this operates on a similar principle. Only the phased resonance array is contained within a series of tubes. Now, the interior and exterior of this craft will all be propulsion surfaces. That's what will be necessary to get the grip, if you will. The size of this is necessary. It has to be constructed just ultra light, just no inertial resistance relative to the size of it, It has to be all about just grabbing that solar wind. Yeah, speaking of plasma, the initial concept was to use basically a radioactive isotope of some mineral to create a sort of a a magnetic stabilized plasma charge, kind of, basically to excite the magnetic field and then move it down. And that's what this whole wave theory started out as, is how do you amplify it enough relative to the size of the section of the hull to create a consistent wave pattern. And I considered the best way to avoid over-complex calculations would be to make repetitive hull shape designs. So if you want to make the magnetic field of a metallic object congruent with another magnetic field, make that metallic object the same shape and, you know, same metallurgically. So that's where you arrive at this repetition of shapes. See, this field transmitted from here to here, if allowed to pulse resonantly with the addition of plasma or radiologic excitement, would be able to propel itself forward as fast as that pulse could be made. So that seems rather messy and for space only. So I'm hoping that maybe somewhere out there there's somebody who's had some success with just pure EM pulse resonance as a form of propulsion. The problem being, you know, usually it requires a vehicle and a transducive platform of some sort. This is trying to add enough of the pulse to enough of the vehicle and make it powerful enough that the platform becomes unnecessary. Anyways, if it works, it'd be pretty cool. But if not, it at least makes a good, like, sci-fi, you know, bullshit, like a bullshito warp drive kind of thing, you know. Anyways. Yeah, I've seen things like that in theory. Not sure if they were legit or not, right? But the problem is, if you want to do interstellar travel, you got to go faster than light. And there's only so fast you can make one engine pulse. So you have to make a way to fit multiple engines in succession and then have them phase their pulse with each other, then, you know, causing acceleration beyond the capability of one individual. But, you know, the entire point really is to go faster than light, to make interstellar travel possible. And to do that, the most logical course of action is to find a means of propulsion that can use light as the gradient, light as the surface, light as the atmosphere through which it travels. And the only thing that's going to allow you to grip light is electromagnetism. So if you can find a way to pulse and repel against it, that's the only way you're going to get faster than it. And just for the record, I don't believe in Einstein's time displacement theory. Anyways, I'm going to have to go because this migraine is getting out of hand and I just don't feel very good. So, hope y'all enjoyed that little brain teaser there. Y'all take it easy, don't take it all. Don't forget to click the like button. Peace.